Lila looked like any other weary traveler dozing in seat 8A. One suspected she was a highly skilled pilot with thousands of hours in the cockpit when the captain suddenly collapsed, and a fierce storm loomed ahead. The flight attendant's urgent call for help echoed through the cabin. Lila's hidden expertise was about to become everyone's salvation. Before you dive into the full video, drop a comment with your country of origin. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more gripping stories. The cabin lights were dimmed for the red-eye flight from Chicago to Seattle. Outside the small oval windows, city lights dissolved into the night as Flight 447 ascended smoothly toward cruising altitude. The Boeing 737-800 carried 147 passengers, mostly business professionals and families returning home after the Thanksgiving holiday. In seat 8, Leela Patel adjusted her window shade and tucked her travel blanket under her chin. She'd chosen the window seat for its calm, allowing her to rest against the fuselage. To onlookers, she was just another fatigued passenger, a woman in her early 30s dressed in a cozy gray sweater and dark jeans, perhaps a consultant or educator heading home after a long week. During boarding, the flight attendants had noted her quiet demeanor. She'd politely declined a pre-flight drink, requesting only a pillow, and carried a plain black carry-on without any airline insignia or professional hints. Her composed, confident movements gave no clue to her true identity as anything beyond an ordinary traveler. As the plane reached cruising altitude and the seatbelt sign flicked off, the flight attendants began their subdued service routine. Their soft-soled shoes barely whispered on the carpeted aisle as they moved through the cabin. Pausing at row 8, they glanced at Lila's serene figure and shared a knowing look. "She's been asleep since takeoff," murmured Susan Carter, the senior flight attendant, to her colleague. "Must have had an exhausting day." They took care not to disturb her while serving drinks to others in her row. The businessman in 8B, a middle-aged man in a sharp suit, worked on his laptop with the screen dimmed. He glanced at Lila and shook his head with a faint smile. "Some people can sleep anywhere," he muttered to the flight attendant. "Wish I could do that." In 8C, an elderly couple from Minnesota whispered about their plans to see their grandchildren in Seattle, careful not to wake the sleeping woman nearby. "She looks like she could be a teacher," the wife said softly, "or maybe in marketing. These young women work such long hours." Over the first hour, passengers occasionally glanced at Lila with a mix of admiration and concern. In a world that never slows down, her ability to sleep so soundly on a plane seemed almost enviable. Some figured she was a seasoned traveler, adept at napping mid-flight. Others wondered if she was exhausted from a demanding job or personal stress. None could have guessed the truth about Leela Patel's remarkable background or the irony of her tranquil rest on this particular flight. Unbeknownst to them, Lila was far more than she seemed. Beneath her unassuming exterior lay an extraordinary career that would soon prove critical to everyone on Flight 447. Lila was a veteran commercial airline pilot with over 8,000 flight hours. She held an airline transport pilot license, the pinnacle of aviation certification, and was qualified on multiple aircraft, including the Boeing 737 they were aboard tonight. Her logbook, stored safely in her Seattle apartment, chronicled a stellar aviation career that began in the U.S. Air Force. After earning a degree in aeronautical engineering from the Air Force Academy, Lila spent 5 years piloting C-130 transport planes in demanding conditions worldwide. from rugged airstrips in Afghanistan to icy runways in Alaska. Her military training honed her ability to manage emergencies with cool precision and make critical decisions under pressure. After her service, Lila transitioned to commercial aviation, starting as a first officer at a regional airline before rising to captain at a major carrier. She'd flown coast-to-coast routes, handling everything from mechanical issues to severe weather. Just last month, she'd safely managed an engine failure during takeoff, landing her aircraft and 134 passengers without incident. But this week had been grueling, even for Lila. She'd just completed her annual recurrent training, 3 days of intense simulator sessions covering every conceivable emergency. She'd practiced engine failures, hydraulic malfunctions, electrical issues, and severe weather scenarios. The training was exhausting, designed to keep pilots razor-sharp for real-world crises. The final day had been particularly intense, with 8 hours in the simulator tackling multiple system failures, low visibility approaches, and crisis scenarios like engine fires, cabin depressurization, and landing gear issues. Lila aced every test, but the mental and physical toll left her drained. After finishing, she'd looked forward to a few days off to recharge. She'd booked this late-night flight as a passenger, not a crew member, to unwind from the week's demands. She chose not to identify herself to the crew, a common choice among off-duty pilots seeking a break from operational duties. Lila had shed all traces of her professional identity before heading to the airport. Her pilot uniform hung in her hotel closet, her license was tucked in her wallet, and her crew badge was in her flight bag at home. Dressed in civilian clothes with a nondescript black bag, she blended in perfectly as an anonymous passenger. This anonymity was deliberate. In the past, crew members had recognized her as a pilot and asked for help with minor issues, calming anxious passengers during turbulence, offering input on small mechanical problems, or assisting in the cockpit during tricky approaches. While always willing to assist, sometimes Lila just wanted to be a regular traveler, free to rest without aviation responsibilities. Tonight was meant to be one of those nights. She planned to sleep through the 3-hour flight, wake up refreshed in Seattle, and take a taxi to her quiet apartment. With no flights scheduled for 4 days, she could rest, run errands, and maybe visit her sister across town. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Hayes and First Officer Emily Kim were settling into their routines. Hayes, a 22-year veteran with over 15,000 flight hours, was feeling unusually fatigued. At 54, he'd been flying commercially for decades, but had recently noticed occasional chest discomfort and shortness of breath. He'd mentioned it to his wife but avoided a doctor, wary of kindizing his medical certificate and career. Tonight, the discomfort was worse, which he chalked up to stress from deteriorating weather and a demanding flight schedule. He'd taken antacids before the flight, convincing himself he just needed to push through and rest later. First Officer Kim, 29, with 2,800 flight hours, was diligently focused but uneasy about the weather ahead. The pre-flight briefing had warned of a developing storm system over the Pacific Northwest, with moderate turbulence and light precipitation expected. But reports now indicated a rapidly intensifying storm with severe turbulence, hail, and wind shear. As Flight 447 cruised at 35,000 feet, none of the 149 souls aboard could foresee the dramatic turn their journey was about to take. The combination of Hayes's worsening condition, the escalating storm, and Lila's hidden expertise in Seat 8 was about to create a life-or-death scenario. Suddenly, Captain Hayes clutched his chest, a sharp pain radiating through him. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he gripped the yoke tightly. "Emily, you okay?" First Officer Kim asked, noticing his struggle. "I think." "I'm having a heart attack," Hayes gasped, his left arm numbing. "Take control of the plane." His words were barely out before he slumped forward, breathing raggedly. Kim's heart raced, but her training took over. She seized control of the Boeing 737, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. "Captain Hayes is incapacitated," she announced to Seattle Center Air Traffic Control. "Medical emergency in the cockpit. Requesting priority handling and clearance to the nearest airport. Flight 447, Seattle Center copies your emergency. Nature of the medical issue, and do you need immediate assistance? Pilot incapacitation, suspected cardiac event," Kim replied, keeping her voice professional. "First officer assuming command, requesting vectors to Seattle and paramedics on arrival." As she managed the crisis, Kim noticed a second threat on the weather radar, a massive storm system ahead, displaying a wall of red and yellow signaling severe turbulence and hazardous conditions. The pre-flight briefing hadn't predicted this intensity. What was forecast as manageable had escalated into a dangerous system with hail and wind shear capable of damaging aircraft. Kim realized she faced the toughest challenge of her career, flying solo with 147 lives in her hands through a storm that pushed her experience to its limits. In the cabin, passengers remained oblivious to the unfolding drama. Lila slept soundly in 8A, her breathing even as she leaned against the window. The businessman in 8B had closed his laptop and was dozing. Most passengers were sleeping or reading, unaware their safety hung in the balance. Senior Flight Attendant Susan Carter received the cockpit as emergency call and grasped the situation as severity. With 18 years of experience, she'd handled medical emergencies but never one involving the pilot in command during such conditions. She quietly alerted her team, using subtle signals to avoid alarming passengers, and they began securing the cabin for a potentially rough landing. "How bad is it?" Carter asked Kim via the interphone, keeping her voice low. "Captain's unconscious," Kim replied, her tone steady but strained. "I'm flying solo into severe weather. I could use someone with more experience to help with the approach." Carter understood immediately. Off-duty pilots sometimes traveled as passengers, and in emergencies, their skills could be invaluable. It was a slim chance, but she had to try. "I'll make an announcement," she said. "Maybe we'll find someone." She knew it might unsettle passengers, but decided the need for help outweighed the risk. Crafting her words carefully, she picked up the intercom. Lila was dreaming of her first solo flight when the intercom crackled, pulling her from sleep. Her pilot instincts, always alert, caught the unusual timing of a mid-flight announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your senior flight attendant," Carter began, her voice calm but tense. "We have a medical emergency in the cockpit, and our captain cannot continue his duties. Our first officer is in control, but we're also facing challenging weather. If any qualified pilots, commercial, military, or flight instructors are on board, please press your call button immediately. We need your assistance to ensure everyone's safety." The cabin stirred with unease. The businessman in 8B sat up, his face tight with worry. "Medical emergency in the cockpit," he whispered. "Is the pilot okay?" A mother behind them leaned forward. "Are we in danger? Should I wake my kids?" Lila snapped awake, her training kicking in. She felt the aircraft as subtle movements signaling turbulence and heard faint engine changes indicating the autopilot's strain. Her pilot senses detected what most passengers missed. Scanning the cabin, she saw no other signs of aviation expertise among the passengers, who were now gripping armrests or reaching for phones despite no signal. Lila hesitated over the call button. After her grueling training week, she'd craved anonymity and rest. The weight of 147 lives felt heavy, but as turbulence intensified and lightning flashed outside, her sense of duty took over. Her military and commercial training had prepared her for this exact scenario. She pressed the call button. Carter appeared instantly. "Are you a pilot?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Lila said, unbuckling her seatbelt. "Commercial pilot, 8,000 hours. Military transport experience, current on the 737. Relief washed over Carter's face. "Thank God." "Cockpit's this way." The businessman in 8B gaped. "You're a pilot? You were sleeping." "I was off duty," Lila replied, following Carter. The turbulence worsened, forcing her to steady herself against seatbacks. Passengers looked scared, and a child's cry echoed from the back. "What's the situation?" Lila asked as they neared the cockpit. "Captain collapsed 10 minutes ago," Carter said. "First Officer Kim's flying, but she's never handled weather like this alone. We're an hour from Seattle, with a major storm in our path." Lila nodded. She'd navigated storms in both military and commercial flights. The cockpit door opened, revealing Captain Hayes unconscious in the left seat, and Kim gripping the controls as the plane jolted. "I'm Lila Patel, commercial pilot," Lila said, taking the observer's seat. "What's your experience?" "Emily Kim, first officer, 2,800 hours," Kim replied, eyes fixed on the instruments. "I've never flown through this as pilot in command." Lila scanned the panel. Everything was normal except the weather radar, which showed a daunting red and yellow wall. "You're doing great, Emily," Lila said calmly. "What's our fuel?" 45 minutes, Kim said. "But Seattle's reporting severe weather. They might not clear us to land." Studying the radar, Lila spotted a potential gap. "There's a break 30 miles south," she said. "If we deviate now, we can skirt the worst and still reach Seattle. You sure?" Kim asked, hesitant. "I've flown through storms like this," Lila reassured. "Trust me." "Request heading 180. Kim radioed. "Seattle Center. Flight 447 requesting deviation to heading 180 for weather avoidance." "Approved. Turn right to 180. Be advised, extreme precipitation on your current track." As Kim turned, Lila coached her. "Gentle inputs. Let the plane handle the turbulence." The next 20 minutes were tense, with lightning flashing and the aircraft shaking. Lila stayed calm, guiding Kim. "Airspeed's dropping," Kim said during a downdraft. "Add power. Raise the nose slightly," Lila instructed. In the cabin, passengers clung to their seats as the plane pitched. Flight attendants had secured the cabin, but nervous chatter and occasional screams filled the air. "How's Captain Hayes?" Lila asked Carter, who stayed in the cockpit. "Still out, but stable. Paramedics are ready." "Good. Emily, you're doing great," Lila said. Kim gave a tight smile. "Better with you here. I was panicking." "That's normal," Lila said. "Trust your training. We're almost through." The turbulence eased as they cleared the storm's southern edge. Seattle approach provided landing instructions. Flight 447. Contact approach on 118.3. Weather improving. Winds 270 at 15. Visibility 5 miles. Light rain. Kim switched frequencies. Seattle approach. Flight 447 at flight level 350, requesting descent. Descend to 240. Paramedics standing by. Leela helped Kim with the approach checklist. I was terrified when Hayes collapsed, Kim admitted. Thought we were done. You did everything right, Lila said. You took control and accepted help. That's what matters. As they descended, Kim grew more confident. Seattle weather, winds calm, visibility 10 miles, broken clouds at 3,000, the controller reported. Runway 16 left available. We'll take 16 left, ILS approach, Kim replied. Layla assisted with landing preparations. At 3,000 feet, the runway appeared. Beautiful approach, Lila said. Kim smiled. Simulator never taught me to handle a heart attack and a storm. That's why we have procedures and teamwork, Lila replied. Flight 447 landed smoothly at 4:23 a.m. Emergency vehicles raced alongside as they taxied to Gate S7. Passengers deplaned, many thanking the pilots. The businessman from 8B paused. I thought you were just a tired passenger. Sorry, that was the idea, Leela smiled. Carter offered Lila coffee. You saved us. Just did my job, Lila said. We look out for each other. As Lila left, she reflected. She'd started as a passenger craving rest, but her skills had averted disaster. Hayes was conscious in the ambulance with a good prognosis. Kim had gained critical experience, and 147 passengers reached Seattle safely. Most unaware of the near catastrophe, at the taxi stand, Lila anticipated her own bed. But she knew she'd answer the call again if needed. That's what pilots do, help each other, on or off duty, in the cockpit or seat Ada. The storm had passed, and everyone was safe. That was what mattered.